So here I have a range of lens. This is the Sigma 50R, this is the Sony G Master 24, and this is the, I'm not sure what this is. This is some kind of Minolta with the adapter, and this is the 7 Artisan. So this lens can be divided into two things. These are expensive lens, these are the price, and these are the cheaper lens, these are the price. But if I have access to this lens, which are, I guess a lot of reviewers say, the better lens, why do I still keep these cheap lenses? So today I'm gonna share with you why I still have cheap lenses. First reason. Well, before we go to the first reason, I need to explain to you why this is cheaper and why this is a lot more expensive. Usually what makes a lens more expensive is simply because it's built better with better materials and it has less problems, it's a lot more reliable. Whereas cheap lenses are made with cheap items, less glass, and there's a lot of imperfections, there's a lot of problems when using it. So why do you use it if there's so much problem with it? Because of all those imperfections, it has a unique look. It has its own personality, so to say. Sometimes all these expensive lens, it's too good to the point that it has no very obvious personality to it. Whereas the cheap lens, they have this fringing, they have the chromatic aberration problems, and then they have like a certain manual focus that just is not accurate or anything else, but those imperfections are exactly what you need in that shot. For example, you're making a shot about a person who is feeling lost. So you want the shot to be imperfect because it represents what the subject is feeling at that moment. So you don't want a perfect lens, like you want an imperfect lens just for that shot. So that's why I still keep this around, because they are, when you really need them, it's really handful, and it creates a beautiful shot if you really know what you're doing and you understand what you're trying to get. And also, those unique look that I mentioned is also about, it has a really nice sun flare to it. So when I'm shooting golden hour, usually I just take one of these lenses and see how it reacts to the light. Because of the different amount of glass inside the lens, so it reacts differently to sun flares and like light coming into the lens. It creates a different effect, a different kind of look to it. So it has its own look that it's very difficult to replicate in post, very difficult to recreate with a lens that is usually do not have this, because more expensive lens, they tend to make sure that these things do not happen. They want the lens to be as neutral as possible that you can use for any situation. So yeah, I want that imperfection. Another advantage to having cheap lens is, well, it's cheap, so you can buy more of it. Instead of only having the budget to buy one really good lens, you can buy 3 or 5 of these lenses with the same budget as one lens. So now you have more lens, you have more range, you have more focal length, and to me, having more lenses with different focal lengths, it allows you to do a lot more when you're actually shooting video rather than just relying on one lens. So for me, it's always better to have a range of lenses than just one lens, because now you are more flexible in terms of like what composition you can do, what you can actually shoot. It's way easier to do a video with mediocre lens, but you have a lot of them, than it is to do with only one lens. It's very it's not impossible, but it's quite difficult to do a video with just one lens. So that's why I still have this cheap lens, because it gives me the range that I could not afford if I wanted to buy a good lens, and then have that focal length instead of not having that option to edit. You know, another advantage of like using cheap lens like this, you have to understand that to make sure that they are cheap, they have to lose a few features, mainly the autofocus. So most cheap lens, they are manual lens, and some people may see it as a problem, but for me it's an opportunity for you to practice your manual focus. Some of you may think that, oh, why should we learn manual focus. We all have like really good camera that have good autofocus and lenses that have very fast autofocus. Well, most of the time, once you start shooting short films and certain videos that require high accuracy of focus, you need to do manual lens. It doesn't matter what kind of camera, what kind of lens you have, there's nothing that beats good manual focus. So good manual focus skills is really important, and having cheap lens forces you to practice it instead of just relying on the autofocus. So those are the reasons why I still use the cheap lenses. If I were to conclude it, it's basically just saying that there's no such thing as a bad lens. It's just a lens that is suitable for this, suitable for that. There are lenses that are specifically made for other purposes, like macro is just for macro. There are lenses specifically made for shooting buildings, architecture lenses. So there's no such thing as a bad lens. It's just, are you using it for the right purpose? That's it. So even though it's a cheap lens, don't be shy, use it. It has its own strengths that you can use. Okay, bye. Bye Arya.